I've been dealing with a private equity firm that I really like, but I'm not sure I want a boss. How do I define my role now? Now, I don't know where this individual is in the deal process, but assuming a letter of intent has not been signed, you want to figure out role, title, governance, comp rights, whole 9 yards prior to the transaction. Like when you sell a business to private equity, typically, if you're rolling equity, you're not selling the business and staying on, you're entering into a partnership. So most private equity firms are going to want to get that out of the way up front themselves. They're going to want to say, here's your role, here's your comp, here's the board structure, so on and so forth. I always say, if they're not open with that sort of stuff, they're either hiding something or they're amateurs. But in this case, you might not necessarily be asking the right question. So you need to define your role, and you should define it right now, and you should understand how much control you have over the board going forward. Because if you don't, you might find yourself in a position where you really don't like your life post-closing. Last year, I was dealing with a private equity firm that I didn't move forward with. I felt uncomfortable because they asked me to roll equity in order to align incentives, but the terms were vague. What should I have expected? Well, when you think about it, alignment without total transparency is manipulation to a certain degree. And I think what you have to ask for is the cap table. So what's the cap table of NewCo look like? What's the waterfall of the proceeds going to look like when there's a payout? Questions like, will your equity be diluted by management? Understanding what they're going to do from an acquisition perspective going forward. You really need to ask these sorts of questions up front. Oftentimes I find that sellers find these terms to be vague just because they're not used to dealing with them. Now, if you've got a private equity firm that's saying, hey, don't worry, we'll take care of it, just roll this equity, roll 20%, you'll get paid, it's fine. It's a serious problem. But more times than not, in my experience, private equity firms are super excited to say, hey, this is the cap table. This is what this looks like. This is how you would or wouldn't be diluted. They want to have that alignment because no one wants to have these sorts of problems post-closing. The continuation of that question was, they said they would like for me to be CEO after the deal, but I won't control the board. Should I care? Well, your title means absolutely nothing, right? So just because you're CEO, a CEO under kind of standard board governance means the CEO reports to the board of directors. And if the board of directors has hiring and firing decisions, they can fire you. So you can be CEO. I think what you need to really understand is who controls the board, who controls the budget, who controls the comp, who sits on the board, right? Do you have veto rights? There's a lot of things that go into understanding how much control you'll have post-closing. Now, from earlier in your question, you said they wanted you to roll equity, but they were vague. Then they want you to stay on as CEO, but say you won't control the board. I would say that that's pretty standard, that you're not going to control the board depending upon how much equity they're going to actually own in the business. To me, it sounds like this is a control purchase by a private equity firm, meaning they'll control the board numerically. A quick rule of thumb here is, it's like, if you want to stay, you structure it. If you want to go, you price it. Meaning, if you want to stay, you really need to think about board governance. You really need to think about this comp structure. You really need to think about the alignments with the rolled equity, so on and so forth. And if you don't, you just price the deal to be out the door. This next question is from an attorney who said he's really enjoyed our videos. And he said, how do I tell if a buyer is really serious or just wasting time? He goes on to talk about over the years, he's had a lot of clients that have dealt with buyers that just tend to be time wasters. And for me, this goes back to what I discussed in the psychology behind selling a business, is the investment principle, right? Is a buyer investing? Have they flown in? Are they spending money on dinners? Are they hiring outside advisors? If they put together real IOI and LOI, like what sort of investment of time, money, and effort is a buyer doing? Because anyone, I give my 12-year-old niece a crayon and a piece of paper and she can put together an LOI. She can take a picture of it on her iPhone, email it off to a seller and say, hey, here's an offer on your business, right? I mean, that's how easy it is. It's a non-binding offer. Seriously. So, but I wouldn't say she's particularly serious about a $50 million acquisition. And I also don't see her getting on a plane and whining and dining you. But if there is a sophisticated buyer or any buyer who is putting an offer down, spending money, again, flying in, flying out, flying you in, spending a lot of time, money, and effort, that effort shows that they're serious, because people don't do that when they're not serious. People do what my 12-year-old niece would do, which is take a picture of an LOI and send it off. So I think those are pretty good proxies for whether or not they're serious. It's like if they haven't spent money, they haven't really made a commitment. Thank you for joining me today. I appreciate the comments on YouTube. I appreciate the messages that I get on LinkedIn. If you're new to the channel, please like and subscribe, and feel free to leave a question below. I'm Paul Giannamore, and I'll see you on the next one.